Wasn't that a great session? I loved hearing their perspective and so glad they could be with us today. Thank you to each of the panelists for such an informative session. Okay, coming up next, we've got our first session in the blockchain, Web3, NFTs, and metaverse space. As I mentioned earlier, we are diving deep into these topics. Our goal? To bring a better understanding into these technologies that will revolutionize every industry in a big way. But it's important to know what each of these terms mean and how they differ, even if they are all powered by somewhat similar technology. Our first session in the space is Web 3.0, the next web frontier, and all its benefits.
All right, Blackest Tech community. All right, Blackest Tech community. Thank you guys for coming to this session. My name is Pavon Dunbar. The title of this session is Web 3.0, the next web frontier and all its benefits. We have a great group of panelists that specialize in Web3 and thought leadership. Before we begin, I'm going to give you guys a brief introduction to myself. I am a blockchain developer for a fintech bank in Silicon Valley. I have been in crypto and tech since 2016, investing in Bitcoin per se, and I wanted to find out how did everything work under the hood. So I decided to learn Ethereum, Solidity, and other programming languages that power the blockchain. So I am going to pass the mic over to the other panelists so that they can give a quick introduction about themselves. Panelists, can you please state your name, what it is that you do, and just give a brief background in tech.
Sure, I'll go. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Contessa Louise Cooper, and to be honest with you, I'm probably like a newbie in this space. I got started at the beginning of the year, but I decided to do one thing, which is to show up and to show out. And if I can do it, I promise you, anyone else can do it too. I am a Web3 community builder. I am the co founder of Black Creators DAO, and I'm just so excited to be here.
I'll follow up after Contessa. Thank you for that intro. My name is Tyreek Houston. I'm the lead UX researcher with Infura at Consensus, and I've been working in the tech space for over 7 years. I've worked with large-scale enterprise technology companies and have transformed their working methodologies from waterfall to agile frameworks. I've worked with small-scale and startup companies and have built entire research ecosystems from the ground up so that entire organizations can make more informed, data-driven decisions. I'm also a New Jersey native, born and raised in New Jersey. I'm a fitness enthusiast, an avid traveler, a whole food advocate, and a blockchain enthusiast. I've been inside of the blockchain space ever since 2016 and have not looked back ever since. And I guess one fun fact about me is that I'm also a barber. I've been cutting my own hair since I was 15 and I'm now 29. And one of my goals in Web3 is to make it more inclusive for everybody.
Awesome. Yeah, my name's Abdullah. I'm from Staten Island, New York. I'm founder of Connect Day, so it's a Web3 project that I started about a year ago, basically utilizing a new technology called Holochain, which is kind of different from blockchain, but the same fundamental decentralization and distributed ledger technology is kind of the same with blockchain. So I've been working on this project for about a year now, basically allowing internet users to monetize their internet experience with this new cryptocurrency I've designed. So it's still in the works. I've been working on it for a while now, but yeah, I'm kind of new to the Web3 space as well.
All right. Thank you, panelists. So, the concept of Web3, it's the buzzword that's going around in the tech space, and it's slowly like seeping into the mainstream space. And so, I guess a lot of people do not know exactly what Web3 is. So, my first question is, what is the history of Web3, and how is it different from Web 1 and Web 2?
I don't mind like taking a stab at that one. So I guess like to understand Web3, we also have to understand the past versions or iterations of the web. So Web 1, as we may think about it, um, can be considered the read-only version of the internet, right? And if anyone can recall browsing on the web during the late 90s, all you were pretty much able to do was to find information, right? And that was the primary goal of Web 1, almost like taking entire libraries, books, and information and digitizing it so that more people can have access to useful information. But the problem with Web 1 was that information publishing and content creation was only done by the hands of a few. So, the content creation aspect of it was really centralized and gated. And, that's sort of where Web 2 came in the picture. Web 2
I
was
could
the,
piggyback off that.
yep, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I could piggyback that, get into Web 2. So yeah, I agree 100%. That's definitely what Web 1 was. Web 2 now, from that fundamental concept, branched out to where now you can read and write. Basically, that's where you see social networks, people sharing content. That's more Web 2. So now, Web 3, you get to Web 3.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about, Web 2 in a sense before jumping into Web 3?
Yeah, for sure. Because basically, it was servers. Users can, read and write different servers from their computers, basically through social networks where they're sharing content now rather than just reading content.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where most of us are right now. If you're a
Mhm.
user of
Yeah,
TikTok and scrolling all day long like I do, if you're using Facebook, LinkedIn, these are all Web 2 social networks where, these larger companies, they are basically in charge of who sees your content, and they're making tons of money off of your content. Plus, I don't know what your experiences is, but it's not really that friendly to brown, black, and indigenous folks.
Yeah, exactly. And like Web 2 also gave us sort of like these tools to be able to create content, right? But as you both stated, the problem is that, we don't necessarily have ownership over the content that we create. And also when you think about, these huge centralized companies, they're only giving content creators a fraction of the dollar that we are generating in terms of profit for their companies. So, in retrospect, creators pretty much get paid about 10 cents for every $10 generated for these platforms. And additionally, they have the power to censor, block, or remove content for all
from
creators,
creators.
right? And that doesn't necessarily hurt the platform, but it hurts the pockets of creators. And that's where Web3 comes in the picture. So, Web3 is the internet of ownership where you can read information, you can write, and you can publish information in addition to content while owning your intellectual property and data for everything that you create, right? And this is all done in a decentralized way that removes those intermediaries like Facebook and replaces them with protocols or technology that follow a secure, structured set of rules without any chances of manipulation, right? And this is huge. So if you can imagine, creating a Web3 marketplace on a technology that has a certain set of rules, like Ethereum, right? And those rules say that all content creators or all content created by an individual is permanent unless the creator decides to delete it. Well, now you don't have to worry about censorship. You don't have to worry about your content getting banned. You don't have to worry about your content getting removed like Facebook or Instagram historically does, right? You don't have to worry about losing potential revenue because you have complete control over your content and your data. So that's Web3.
You also don't have to worry about your content getting stolen because you can actually trace your content back to you, the original owner of it. And so that's the part that I'm really excited about. It's like, what do you mean you can't steal from Black creators anymore? That to me is like the bonus about Web3.
Exactly. Great answer, panelists. And also with the blockchain, everything that is submitted to the blockchain is immutable, verifiable, and traceable, and timestamped. So to piggyback off of what Ms. Contessa was saying, no one cannot steal your data. So as far as what Tyreek was saying as well, Web3 is, in summary, a technology that's moving forward where people like us can read, write, and own data, as opposed to Web 1, where you can read data only, and Web 2, to where you can just read and write data. Great answer, panelists. So, I guess my next question for you guys is, what is your unique perspective on Web3 and mass adoption, particularly among the Black community?
So, okay, so I'll go. To me, the way to get the Black community to adopt Web3 is to meet them where they are, to actually be able to tell them what Web3 has to do with them and how they can use it right now in their lives.
I agree 100%. And to piggyback off that, I think starting off just letting people know the importance of intellectual property, right? Because from there, once they dive into intellectual property and the importance of owning things, now from there you can shift to owning digital assets, right? Like digital content, NFTs, concepts like that. Even music, I think, Web3 will really revolutionize the music industry because there are a lot of artists, not only musicians even, but artwork that, they don't make all their revenue from. So I think Web3 can definitely impact in that area.
Exactly. And as it relates to crypto, there is no more centralization. So there is no middle authority that's controlling how money can be sent from sender to receiver. Also, developing crypto and investing in it in its early stages can allow us as Black people to invest in it at an early stage, hold on to it, and capitalize on it to create generational wealth for our families and our loved ones, without having to pay large amount of fees to send money to someone overseas or someone in another state. So crypto is breaking that, I guess, that glass ceiling per se, as far as centralization is concerned with the banking system.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I agree with everything that everybody said, and just in terms of like thinking about mass adoption for the Black community, if you go back to the early days of Web3, 2011, 2012, right? The vast majority of Black conferences were not talking about Web3. They were not even thinking about blockchain or cryptocurrency. But now, fast forward to 2020, 2021, and 2022, we have huge conferences like Black is Tech, like Afro Tech, like the Apex Summit, who have dedicated sessions and panels just for Web3 and cryptocurrency to, like Contessa said, to meet our community where they're at. There was also a 2022 crypto adoption report launched by the Stellar Lumens Development Foundation, and they found some pretty interesting things. But the TLDR, the too long didn't read version of that report, is that cryptocurrency is no longer a mysterious conversation. It's frequent conversations and frequent discussions that people are talking about, not just in the United States, but globally. And, the stereotype of young white teenage males only using cryptocurrency is 100% demystified. And you can actually verify that by doing a few searches. During Afrotech last year, during a Coinbase session, there were actually a few Black owned cryptocurrency projects that Coinbase sponsored. So, now you can actually Google or search, how many Black owned cryptocurrency projects exist. And you can meet and join those communities to find out exactly what's going on. So there's a lot more builders in the space. There's a lot more people learning about the space. and there's a lot more conversations about Web3 and cryptocurrency.
Awesome, great answer, Tariq. And to build on that, there are plenty of opportunities that are available in Web3. I, for one, am a blockchain developer, as I mentioned earlier, but to the panel, can you guys tell the audience other opportunities in particular that could be available in this dynamic space?
Trying to get somebody else an opportunity to go first. All right, I'll jump in again. I will jump in again. So I have a secret, and the secret is
I'm being a gentleman,
oh,
but I'm breaking up a little bit.
don't even worry about that, all right? Because I will take over. The secret is anything that you can do in Web 2, you can do in Web 3. I do have a technical background, but I'm not a developer. I'm not a coder. I don't know anything about smart contracts, but what I do know how to do is plan events. I do know how to build community. I do know how to host events. I do know how to attract other people like me into the space. I do know how to teach. So we need teachers, we need educators, we need scientists, because DeFi and DeSci is a thing, right? We need people who know how to go out. We need accountants. We need marketers. We need all different types of people in Web3. And I don't think that we talk enough about the non-technical side of Web3. So whatever it is that you're doing right now in corporate America, you can easily walk yourself right over here to Web3 and do it here.
That's a huge point. Just talking about like the non-technical opportunities in Web3. And like to piggyback off of that, I think most of the non-technical creators or contributors that we think about are typically like end users, right? So from an end user perspective, there's definitely a lot of opportunities for early adoption, right? And in a space that incentivizes early adoption, free things are typically the reward. So like those free things could come in the form of an exclusive NFT, tokenized airdrops in your wallet. Other opportunities could be, you have the chance to learn about the technology and how to use it before the rest of the world, right? So you also have the chance to put your hands on it first to learn about the important projects and people in the space before anyone else. So ultimately, that gives you an advantage in terms of making investment decisions and actually participating in Web3.
Perfect, Tyreek. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and to kind of go back to what Contessa said. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go
Hey,
ahead.
go
can you
ahead.
guys hear me?
Yes. We can
I
hear
was
you.
breaking up a little bit, but yeah, to kind of go back to what Contessa said, everything that's on Web 2 is going to definitely transfer over to Web 3, but now there's also going to be these new concepts for Web 3. So yeah, there's definitely a whole bunch of opportunity. So for starters, probably looking into projects that are currently Web 2 based, shifting over to Web 3. Like for instance, even Apex, there's this application that runs on Bitcoin that pays you to use, the social network. It's like Instagram, literally just like Instagram, but they pay you in Bitcoin. So stuff like that, it's definitely a whole bunch of opportunity.
Yes. And as far as the opportunities go, you can be like NFT developer. You can create a DAO. You can do fractionalized NFTs. And there's so many industries that you can.
I think we might have lost you. Oh, okay, you're back.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'm sorry about that. So there's a creation of a DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization. There's metaverse. There's NFTs. You can break down NFTs into fractional shares and issue them out to investors. There's so many opportunities in the space. There's blockchain developers. There's also you can create your own token, and if you have a good utility or a use case for it, you can promote that to the masses. So Web3 is still in its infancy. The one thing that I would like the audience to understand is don't think that you've missed the bus or missed the train and that it's taken off. No, it is still in its infancy. It still has yet to blow up. And right now is a great time for us collectively to get into the space and take advantage of it. So, with the opportunities being there, Contessa, this question is for you in particular. How did you get involved in Web3? And tell us your journey.
So, Like I said earlier in my introduction, I got involved in Web3 around the beginning of the year, and I, I I don't mind telling my age. I'm 50 years old, and so when I heard about crypto and Web3, I was like, yeah. I'm just gonna let y'all young people handle that, right? I don't want anything to do with this Web3. It just seems too complicated. The way people talked about it, I was like, I don't even understand what you're talking about. So I had a friend of mine sit me down, and I was like, tell me what this is. Like, I'm 5 years old, like a child. How would you explain this to a child? And like we did, not saying any of y'all are children, but explain it to me in a very simple way. And I was like, is that it? Oh, I can do this. This now doesn't seem too difficult. So I did what I normally do, is like these deep dives, and I started reading everything I could about crypto and about Web3. And then I went to my first hackathon, which was tokenomics. So I learned everything I could about tokenomics. I have my own currency, what social tokens are. I've learned all about NFTs. I got invited into Odyssey DAO, which is an educational DAO, and I learned so much. And then I started just showing up at everything Odyssey had to do, right? And the next thing I know, I was moderating a channel. And then the next thing I know, I was leading a room. And then now I'm sitting here at leadership meetings. Now I'm doing events. I'm doing AMAs. People are asking me to host their own events. And then I ended up being the community and event lead. And so now, anytime there's an event, anytime people come into this large DAO, y'all saw my cute little face. And I was able to bring in more people like me. So if I can go into a DAO and I can show up and I can start to get involved, you can too. It is absolutely not too late to get involved in Web3. And myself personally, I have an open door policy. If there's anything you want to know, if you have any questions, if you're not quite sure where to go, holla at your girl.
Thank you, Contessa.
You're welcome.
Now, with blockchain development and Web3, most people who are in the space would say it's mainly back-end programming, but that's far from the truth. A lot of it involves the end user experience, and front-end development plays a crucial part as well. This question is for you, Mr. Tyreek. How do you see um, UX playing a significant role in Web3 and its adoption?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in my personal opinion, UX has always been the bridge for mass adoption, right? So it's making adoption of Web3 easier for the rest of the world, right? It's improving interface designs and experiences of developer tools, of blockchain software, and end user applications, right? It's making it easier for everybody to use products in Web3 because, as we all know, the average person, they won't use tools that are too complex. And we also know that as a fact, as UX professionals. UX is also playing a huge role in accessibility. And that's a huge thing, right? Because more and more UXers are entering the space, and some have a deep background in accessibility, right? And that is going to be crucial for mass adoption because everyone in the world doesn't function the same, right? There are people that are differently able, and we can't exclude them from this space, especially Black people. We have to think about, how do we develop products in Web3 that visually impaired people can't use? Or how do we build Web3 products that mentally impaired people can use, right? These are all things that UXers are uniquely equipped to answer and solve. And I think the last role that UX is playing a huge role in is inclusivity, right? That's another component that UX is uniquely equipped to answer and solve. And if you think about the technology industry at large, right, it's predominantly dominated by white men. And there are products that exist today that are tailor made just for that audience. UX in Web3, we can't allow that to perpetuate. UX advocates for speaking to more diverse people so that we're not tailoring development for one specific demographic. And that's actually a value that myself and my research team practices for all research projects and work streams that we take on, right? We make sure that we talk to people of different ethnicities, different countries, and different demographics, so that we're not shaping, building, or delivering tools and software for one specific audience. We want to make it inclusive for the diaspora of the world. So, those are three core pillars that UX is playing a role in as it relates to mass adoption.
Great answer, Tyreek. Thank you for that. So, with crypto back in 2017, there was only a few hundred, but now since Ethereum allowed other blockchains to fork their EVM or Ethereum virtual machine, now there's over 20,000 cryptos. My question is for you, Mr. Diallo. Do you think that in 5 to 10 years there will be more cryptos being created with unique use cases, or do you think that 99% of them will fizzle out?
That's a great question. Honestly, I think people are going to continue to make their own currencies as Web3 continues to develop. But yeah, a lot of them will definitely fizzle out. Some of them will, because even right now markets go up and down, they fluctuate. So as one drops, another one rises. But that is a great question because basically 99%, it is possible that 99% could wipe out completely. But I think I think honestly that not 99%, probably close to 5% will probably stay relevant for the next maybe 20, 30 years. Because a lot of the current coins right now, like Shiba and a lot of the nonsense coins, after they shoot, people get rid of them. That's the truth. A lot of the people that make their money off of it, they get rid of it. I know from experience because when Dogecoin shot up, I was out of there as soon as I had my money. But that's just one use case because Dogecoin wasn't a legitimate project. But there are some legitimate projects like Holochain, what they're doing with basically decentralized computing and basically creating a currency attached to the computing power of a computer. I think that one can last for a while. And I mean, more people will just find more use cases that are useful in the real world and then probably attach it to a digital asset just to manage the value of it, because with supply and demand and all this other kind of stuff, a lot of other factors affect the market. So just having a way to attach the value of a physical object with the digital numeric, I think it's gonna stay relevant for a while. So that's why I wouldn't say 99% probably fizzle out, but because more is gonna still be made consistently. Yeah.
Great, great answer, Mr.
Can,
Diallo. Thank
can
you.
I ask
Yes.
a question? What are your thoughts on community coins?
You're asking
Community
me?
coins, I think they're a great idea. I think they're a great idea, especially like with like managing even supplies. Even there's another project even that's working on a distributed for fashion, like basically fabric. They're working on a project on a hollow chain where you can now same your community of designers, and then you can go to this community of manufacturers to kind of like through the manufacturing process of this merchandise all on a distributed ledger. I think the use case is definitely amazing and can work very well.
Thank you.
I would like to answer that question as well, Contessa. I
Mhm.
think community coins will play a great role as long as there's some sort of governance involved. And by governance, I mean one concept that has come about as of late, and I mentioned it in the session earlier, is the decentralized autonomous organization. This is a corporate infrastructure where the members of the corporation will decide how funds are to be allocated. Anybody can become a member. So it's no longer a hierarchical structure where there's C suite executives, managers, and employees. It's evenly dispersed across the board where everything will be powered by smart contracts. In order to have a great coin, you have to have a community behind it. So if I build a DAO, for example, and I want to allocate $50,000 to support a Black owned project, instead of me as a CEO making that decision on my own, I can go to the members and create a proposal. And based on the number of tokens or coins that that member is holding in their wallet, that member will have that much of a voting power against a quorum. After 5 days, 7 days, whatever time frame I set for that proposal, if there's more for or against or abstain, whatever the members want to vote, if there's more of a for vote, then the smart contract will trigger to automatically take out 50,000 worth of that coin and put it into the receiver's wallet address. It doesn't matter if people bulk, yell, scream about it, say that's a crappy project, because the smart contract will not allow it. It's totally logical. It has zero emotions. And I think that with the DAO being created, it will also empower Black people to make good decisions as far as deciding what funds can be allocated towards certain projects. We can collectively take over a DAO for a company that is owned by a non-Black individual if we collectively buy up the coins. Every time a proposal is being presented, we can determine how that money now is being spent. So there is no CEO meeting with top level executives and managers saying, okay, we have an allocated budget of 100,000 that we can use. Let's donate it to this organization here that deals with rock concerts, for example. And I'm not saying that that's bad. It just gives members the opportunity to have a solidified say so, because the nucleus of the DAO is not an individual or a figurehead, but rather a smart contract that will only execute when the votes are in. And it's just as simple as we have 45 for, 20 against, and 3 abstain. The smart contract will trigger and send the money directly to the recipient to use as they wish.
I just love DAOs.
Yes, they're
I mean,
becoming big.
that was a great way of explaining that. That was just excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And if
Now,
anybody is like, curious about, learning more about community and Web3, there's a book that I actually read a few years ago called Tribes by Seth Godin. And if you think about like tribes, essentially they are communities that have, a certain type of rules and governance that they implement and all collectively agree on as a way to sustain, right? So fundamentally, that philosophy is rooted in Web3. So if you want to like understand what community is a little bit more and take it a step further to become more active in DAOs, I definitely recommend that book.
Excellent, excellent book.
excellent recommendation. Thank you. I will look into it as well. So my final question for the panel is Web3 the same thing as an NFT or a metaverse? If they are, how are they similar? And if they're not, how are they different? And what is the connection between all three of them?
Who
I
wants
could
to
go
take
first with this
it
one.
first?
Yeah, I can, because to kind of go back on what Pavon said earlier with the infancy, Web3 is literally in its infancy. Like, it's so crazy because I remember back in middle school even hearing about Bitcoin for the first time, and it was at $300. And that's just, I think, just the first domino in a series of dominoes that's gonna fall, because basically now we have Ethereum, and Ethereum has their big merge, right? But honestly, I personally, from my understanding of just the ecosystem and the opportunities, I don't think Web3 is just NFTs in the metaverse. I think those are components of Web3. Moving forward, I also think that uh, the core concepts of just data integrity, data ownership, that's Web3, right? Where the data is owned by the individual, by the user, and it's stored on the user's device, right? Where now there isn't other copies of this data, right? Because if I have, let's say, an NFT, right now the NFT is on the internet, someone could in theory just download that JPEG file, and then they can also own the NFT. But I think real Web3 is now the Mona Lisa, right? You have the Mona Lisa, everybody comes to see the Mona Lisa, right? You can take photos of the Mona Lisa, but it's not the Mona Lisa, because that's the Mona Lisa. So I think that's Web3, that concept. And I think it's possible, like especially with a lot of the projects currently available, like Holochain that I'm working with right now. They're big on data integrity, uh, and data ownership and storage, and basically decentralizing just computing power, where it's just basically your computer is its own server. Everything is stored on it.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Diallo.
agree 100%. And I know that we want to save 5 more minutes for Q&A, but just to piggyback off of what you just said, NFTs and the metaverse, they're not, uniquely different from each other. They're more so extensions or byproducts of, blockchain technology. And, for anybody out there that doesn't necessarily understand what NFTs are, um, the definition is non-fungible tokens. But to understand what NFTs are and how to use it, I think it's really important to understand what fungibility means. And fungibility really applies to items that are or can be exchanged, divided, or interchange, right, for the same value. So if you're a US citizen, 4 quarters can be exchanged for $1, and $1 can be divided into 10 dimes or 100 pennies, right? So the dollar is fungible. An example of something that's not fungible would be like diamonds, right? So I can't exchange or divide a black diamond for a white diamond, right? Because really there's not even a way to exchange a white diamond for another white diamond because they're not fungible. You would essentially need a specialist to examine that item and determine where its original source came from, and somebody to give an appraisal for the worth of that item. With NFTs in particular, there's no middleman, right? That middleman is gone. So there's no additional cost associated with it. And you get the benefit of having traceability being built right into the blockchain. So anybody can verify where the original source came from, which ultimately gives you and creators social prestige. So, traceability to the original source is one of the biggest benefits of NFT technology. So nobody can question where an item came from, and passive income in the form of royalties can be accumulated, right? And for the Black community, this is huge. How many times have we created things for the world that has no proof of traceability? Or how many creations have we developed for the world and royalties not been passed down to later generations in our family, right? It's a huge problem that NFTs can most likely solve. And right now, the most common item being created from NFT technology is art, right? But it gets really interesting when you start to think about things like patents or intellectual property or
Mhm.
products or services being built on top of NFT technology.
Thank you, Tyreek. Just to summarize, I would say that metaverse is the virtual world where NFTs will be able to be used. They're not the same, like Tyreek mentioned, but they all fall under the same cluster of Web3. Web3 is like the big umbrella, and it can fall into blockchain, NFTs, DAOs, tokens, metaverse. So if you look at it that way, think of Web3 as the big umbrella as opposed to just a small sector because it is blowing up. So um, I would like to open the floor for questions from the audience. Panelists, you have done an amazing job. Thank you for this wonderful talk on Web3. I really appreciate it. But let's take a few questions. Let's see. Um, if there's anybody in the audience that has a question, please feel free to type it in the chat so that we can address it.
It says that someone's asking about our LinkedIn profile. So you can find me everywhere on social media, on the net, at Contessa Louise. And so that's the best way to get in contact with me and to find me, and also my LinkedIn profile.
S- Same here. I can be found at Pavon Dunbar. It's just my name on LinkedIn. Just feel free to add me if you have any questions about Web3 or blockchain. Let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer those questions for you. We do have one question. Where does Mr. Sulama Traore is asking, where does mobile fit into the future of Web3? From my understanding, many within the ecosystem think the only integration that makes sense are strictly wallet apps, whereas you have the likes of Solana and Ethereum trying to create Web3 based mobile OSs. Did anyone want to take that question?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I could take that.
Okay.
I definitely think Solana's mobile device is going to be a game changer. Because basically now you can have your wallet on your phone. And I think they're going to probably shift towards that same concept of, integrating blockchain ownership with everything on your device. So that's pretty cool. I think that's probably the future. But even right now, like you said, Pavon, it's in its infancy, right? So right now there aren't really many like mobile applications that are truly blockchain, right? Like even there was this one social network that I used to just read up on. I think it was Specs or some Sapien actually. It was called Sapien, and so they
Hmm.
were developed on I think Ethereum, but they were like a social network that rewards users too. But it was just very glitchy because the technology is it's not fully there yet, but it's still being developed. So that's what it's a great space to really get into though because of its infancy. Hey, we might have the next mobile developer in the chat right now, honestly.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think to add on to that, like some of the immediate use cases that we're like starting to see for mobile apps, definitely are wallets, identity protection, privacy preservation, in addition to payments, right? Payments is sort of like the overlooked use case when it comes to Web3 and cryptocurrency. And imagine being able to utilize any cryptocurrency that you own as a form of payment at any merchant store, right? That's like one of the immediate use cases in the original use case of Bitcoin, the first cryptocurrency, peer-to-peer payments. And like we're pretty much on the edge of seeing that happen. We've seen countries like El Salvador utilizing Bitcoin for payments, both sending it to people out of the country, as well as making payments for merchant purchases. We're also starting to see other countries accept cryptocurrency as a form of payment. So I think that's one of the huge overlooked use cases of mobile applications and blockchain technology.
Thank you. There is one more question that is very interesting. This is from Eva Tenya. Um, Her question is thoughts on the effects of Web3 with the future of cloud computing and cloud architecture. How can
I
cloud
love that
architects
question.
better contribute to the enhancement of this space and where are we most needed? I'll just be brief and just give one quick answer. Cloud computing is the future when you mix it with blockchain to create even a permission blockchain where you can use Docker to spin up several containers and connect those as nodes. That could be a great way how cloud computing works. Also, we are needed because of that simple fact that we now, since we have cloud computing like Azure or AWS or G Cloud, um, once we develop the knowledge to even not only build a blockchain or even contribute to an existing blockchain, utilizing someone else's computing resources will allow us to perform the needed functions that we need to get ahead in life, point blank. So cloud computing and blockchain go completely hand in hand. And I think that we are definitely needed in both spaces, not just Web3, but also in cloud architecture. Did
Mhm.
anyone else would like to answer that question from Miss Eva?
Yeah, hello Eva. So I love that you brought up cloud computing because basically this company that I'm working with right now basically designed a framework, a peer-to-peer application framework. They're called HoloChain. If anybody has time to look into HoloChain, it is really a great project because basically that cloud computing, everybody can become their own host.
Mhm.
And now in exchange for hosting computing power, whether it's storage or just cracking calculations for somebody else in the connected ecosystem, you get this new currency called HoloChain. It's its own currency backed by cloud computing. Like there's no pump and dumps, there's no you know basically all the bad stuff from a lot of the early blockchain stuff. Basically it's a stable currency. That's just the currency aspect, but the technology itself, it's completely decentralized. There's no central server housing all the information from the holochain. No, it's you have, let's say, even if you have like an old computer, now there's this technology where you can just connect the USB to your old computer and then it becomes a cloud computing computer, literally. And then you can generate this hollow fuel. So that's why I've been working with them. I'm actually been spending the last year learning Rust to develop on their framework. It's been a little tough, but I'm trying.
Yeah, the paradigms are shifting where, the future of blockchain doesn't look like people depending on AWS or, these other big tech companies like IBM to get access to the internet. Now you can be the one providing access to your entire community in a decentralized way that's fair and equitable for everybody.
All right. Well, unfortunately, those are all the questions that we can take for today. But you guys have our LinkedIn profiles. We'll put them in the chat. But thank you guys very much. Special thank you to each of the panelists for this great presentation on Web3. My name is Pavon. I was the moderator. I hope you guys enjoyed this knowledge share between us. And thank you, Black is Tech, for having us on. You guys take care and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Bye.